I originally didn't know where to start with this game. As a game itself, it's not bad, but when compared to the first game, it's a complete regression. It could have been better as a sequel, especially since the first game laid a really good foundation for the series going forward. However, it didn't really follow that. And to get to the main reason why, I'm going to go through the story first, because that is the least offensive part about this game. So, without further ado, here's Ultimate Regression 2. This game's story is essentially Civil War before Civil War, but the catalyst is different, kind of, maybe, I don't know, I haven't watched the movie yet at this point. Hi, editing me stepping in. So yes, I have watched at this point, and it is December 30th, and I am a dumbass. Yes, it's kind of the same catalyst as the movie, but this is essentially Civil War before Civil War. But this time around, Nick Fury calls on Iron Man, Wolverine, Spider-Man, and Cap to help him raid Latveria at Doom's castle because S.H.I.E.L.D. found that they were doing villain things. However, the government said no, because the Prime Minister has spent all this time mending what Doom did in Ultimate Alliance 1. However, by the way, Galactus doesn't show up whatsoever in this game, except by mention of UA1, just to get sequel bait out of the way. And now a year later, the raid they did on Doom's castle was unsanctioned and done in secret, which made the Latvians, I believe that's how they call themselves, become terrorists, and Nick Fury said, "Hey ho, I'ma go," leaving the remaining heroes to deal with it. Because they became terrorists and Nick Fury causing it, the government is raising a Superhero Registration Act, and all those that don't register are criminals. It doesn't really gain much attention, including after Tony makes an appeal about it, but 3 days later, Nitro explodes and kills 600 plus people.
You're playing with the big boys now.
So the act gets a bunch of traction, making people believe superheroes should be monitored, even though Nitro is a villain and exploded people, killing them, which is what villains do, yet let's blame the heroes who weren't powerful enough to stop them? Question mark? So Captain America vehemently opposes the act, and Tony supports it while we are left to choose which side we want to be on. My friend and I chose Captain America's anti-registration side because it made the most sense. As a little side note, I like how choosing which side you want to be on is tied to gameplay, not like a very strict gameplay. It's either you attack the S.H.I.E.L.D. forces to go to the anti-reg, or you sign up with Maria Hill to go to the registration side. Just a quick thing. Anyway, now we're in Cap's White Star base getting ready to head out on operations. These operations for the anti-reg side are defending their New Jersey base, interrupting a convoy going to Rikers Island, and it's the opposite for the pro-registration, which is raiding the base and defending the convoys. During the convoy mission, we learned that Tony has set up nanites to basically mind control and or just take over the bodily functions of these villains, recruiting more people to the pro-registration side to take down the anti-registration side. So, after that, we go to the last one, which is heading to the prison to free some people who are anti-reg onto our side. However, Tony knew that it was going to happen and prepared an ambush, and all hell breaks loose from that. Both sides fight, and later on, Nick Fury, not the real one, with Tinker, is discovered that the nanites are acting wacky, and someone who isn't Tony is controlling them at points. Nick Fury told us that he told both Tony and Captain America about the nanites and how they were acting wacky. Neither one of them believed him, so we team up with him to figure out who's doing this, why, and how to shut them down. Therefore, in order to get that information, we tail Captain America, who is letting more prisoners out, to find Penance, who is making more nanite prisoners. I believe. We defeat him and he joins us, leading us to the negative zone where we rescue most of the heroes and villains Iron Man has either enslaved or captured. Then Nick Fury blows up the prison and a memorial is held for all the ones who didn't make it out. In result of this, nanites are now spreading throughout the entire world and the SRA is suspended so that both sides can work together to stop the spread. Splitting into two groups, our group goes to Wakanda to help protect them from nanites and set up a base. All the while we learn that Nick Fury is alive, and also we can cure Venom and Green Goblin, and that is just glossed over. Then Mr. Fantastic, Yellow Jacket, Iron Man, and Goliath have researched where the main enemy base is. Now calling themselves the Fold, they're in Iceland. So we travel there and decimate everyone, getting to the terminals and shutting down the process and finding out that, hey, it was the Tinkerer this whole time. And Nick Fury isn't actually dead, but transformed into this nanite being. But then he wants to kill us, so we defeat him, then the ending plays, which there are technically two of them. Not the anti and pro-reg side thing, but there's one where Nick Fury, Iron Man, and Captain America talk to each other. And the difference between the two endings are, for the anti-res side, Captain says that Congress has repealed the SRA and pardoned all heroes who went against it, and for the pro-registration side, Iron Man, I think, says that the SRA has been updated for heroes to voluntarily register for training without having their identities revealed, and Iron Man becomes the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D. So, it's cool, I guess. It's essentially Civil War before Civil War. I've got really nothing to say except it was overall boring at points, even though it was way shorter than the first game. It kind of just happened, and we were just a team for one side, and then the main peeps of each side fought while we were cleaning up Iron Man's fuck-up. Then we go to kill the dude behind the actual fuck-up, aka Tinkerer, and the SRA gets resolved. Character-wise, everyone was portrayed accurately to me as someone who doesn't entirely know all of them, but it was serviceable / passable, which is something that, well, the gameplay really isn't. Alrighty, folks, we're getting to the meat and potatoes of this game and why it sucks, so I brought up what I'm going to dub the Anger Stool. And I'm going to bring this out a lot for a certain other sequel. And off the back of that, I've got no idea where to fucking start with this game. Mostly because there's just so much regression that it seems fine to just start anywhere and talk about anything. Because first off, the game is vastly shorter than the first one, coming into about 6 hours between me and my friend playing it, and even then we took breaks, we talked to everyone, and we looked at some of the side content, but the side content in this game is not as great compared to the first one either. So if we didn't do any of that, it would have been even faster to go along throughout this entire game. So sometimes if I go into any specifics, I might not even have footage to show you because of it. Regardless from that, Ultimate Alliance 2 has no ultimates. Now if you've played the game before, you're probably looking at me and saying, well, there actually are ultimates, but they're called fusions now. Technically yes, but no. Fusions are probably the most broken mechanic I have seen in a video game in a long time. You take two characters, you hold your RT button or your R2 button or whatever it is on PC if this game is on PC, then you hit A, B, or X, or if you're playing with another person, you hit RT as well or LT, and both of those characters do a powered up move together, and it's completely broken because you are A, invincible, B, time slows down, and C, they generally all last more than 10 seconds. You've got 3 fusions as well, targeted, clearing, and guided. Targeted is a one-hit thing where you throw either yourself or an item that you and the other hero combine their powers with at the enemy. Clearing is also a one-time damage thing, but it's in a giant circle. The heroes spin around and do their thing, and it's generally a high damage clearing tool. Now, targeting is objectively the worst out of the bunch, and guided is the best, sporting 3 kind of different types of it. One where you shoot a laser at something and then you redirect it towards others, or you just move around with it causing a lot of damage. Then you have the one where you turn into a tornado, lifting up a bunch of the grunts, actually all of them, and well, you're a tornado, they can't do anything about it. Then you have the rushdown one, where 2 of you just run at enemies and deal hit points, and those hit points do, well, more damage than a targeted, and you run for the longest time, and you're invincible. And you can do this on bosses, and you can spam it, and you can repeatedly get it back pretty easily just by playing the game and using powers. They're broken. I don't know what else to say about it. They're just dumb. Each of the points that I made about the fusions in this game all apply to the ultimates in the first game. However, that game treats all of them with a bit more sanctity. One big hit or effect that can be used sparingly or needs to be timed well for it to be effective, that each hero takes time to acquire and use. And generally the effects are very good and combined well with other abilities. However, this game, you just spam fusions over and over again, and they're not hard to get at all. And my working theory is that the combo mechanic in the first game, where using different abilities would make a plus certain amount of damage, was just turned into these fusions, and it kind of ruins it. Dummying down the game into just spam this fusion when you get it, making it just easier than it needed to be. And that's not all that they dummied down either. Next is the abilities that they dummied down as well, because in the first game you had like 10 abilities, Could be boosts, debuffs, projectiles, melee, radials, any kind of thing that they wanted to put in. And then you had an ultimate. In this game, you have 4. And your 4th one isn't an ultimate. Later down the line in the game, you can upgrade them to do more things or just do more damage in general, but if you level 1 up to level 7, it'll have the same damage, if there is a damaging ability on the character, as the other ones on the same character and the other characters. They might just have a different type of damage called crushing, and that's about it, or fire, or ice. Well, in the first game, there's probably just melee and the ice and fire. Later down the line, you can upgrade it to do different things, which in the first game, granted, it was kind of just to do more damage or more buff. But in here, it kind of feels like a lot of the characters have the same ability as well. Like, I swear X amount of character have the same radial as Daredevil and Gambit, or a cone in front of them, or a projectile that's spammable. They just feel the same compared to the first game, where you would have one ability that the Thing would have, but Luke Cage, Hulk, and the other big guy that I don't remember at the top of my head at this current moment, Colossus, wouldn't have. However, all of them pretty much have a rushdown move in this game, so it just doesn't feel the same. Like, X amount have this projectile that's spammable, X amount have this radial, and X amount have this cone. And I mean, some of the characters feel unique, like Juggernaut, Green Goblin, Black Panther. But my main point is, the characters basically have the same abilities. Like, Gambit's radial, Iron Fist has one, Daredevil has one. They also kind of have a jump and come back down for damage. And that's on top of the fact that they removed like 6 abilities from every character that they moved into this game, and then added more characters, but then only gave them 4 abilities as well. So it's kind of felt like they didn't care as much. Like, the projectiles in the first game are kind of unique, and or just abilities in general. Like, Blade has an ability where he can charge this little stick twice and then it acts like a flashbang. Or he has a burst projectile that has the chance to crit on stunned enemies. Or he has a boomerang that kind of bounces or is just to be thrown. Here, it's just have it and spam it, and it does damage. There's nothing really unique or anything about it. I mean, granted, the first game has some abilities like that, not every character having that if they have a projectile spam. Earlier I mentioned levels on the abilities doing the same damage. Well, it's true unless it's a projectile or a charged ability. And charged abilities do relatively 50% more damage when they're fully charged. But there's like 2 or 3, maybe 4 in the entire game, whilst the first game had, you know, I don't know, charging abilities, spam the button abilities, hold this button to do more damage ability, move the stick to do a certain thing ability. In this game, it's just lackluster and just does a thing if you hit the button. Oh, and we're not done. Remember costumes when base game characters would have 4 and DLC characters would have 3? Well, in this game, you get 1 alt costume and you unlock it by doing this weird character challenge that you can also unlock their specific boosts for, because costumes do nothing, which granted, I do like my cosmetics not being tied to stats. And, well, essentially, that's all costumes do this time around. I mean, also, if you even like the costume that you get, because you don't know what it is. There's no subsection menu either. It's just have it and forget it. And remember, upgrading the costumes? Well, this time it's just an ability the character has, which also the abilities are tied to a story mechanic. If you choose anti-registration, some characters get certain boosts for them. And then if you choose pro-registration, some characters also get certain boosts for them. However, if you beat the game, both sides of the abilities don't unlock. And some characters are just randomly exempt from it, and I don't know why. I mean, I get some of them, like Venom and Green Goblin, they don't really have a side. They were forced onto one side, and then you just have them. But even after beating the game, all the characters don't get their other side's abilities to be unlocked. I mean, I would assume maybe it's because you could play the game again as a new game plus, and then choose the other side. But I didn't go that far because the game was pretty boring after that. We beat it in like less than 6 hours, as I already said. So there's that if on a first playthrough if you go through it. And the costume boosts that were in the first game, is now basically translated to a medal system that you just find medals or earn medals throughout the game, and you apply them at any time that you want. They're okay, I guess. That applies to every hero, and only if you're playing a co-op, only the host can change them. Oh yeah, and gear? Well, that's not in the game now either. And you know, the little extra RPG mechanic for people who want to dive deeper into it? Well, I mean, technically it's still there with strike, body, and focus, but that little gear that can give you an extra boost per character that you would want on them specifically to make builds, non-existent. You just force it into something and it's kind of brain dead. Because bosses this time around are just way too fucking easy and so brain dead to fight. You don't even need to do anything. You just activate a fusion, a guided one specifically, and you just go ham on them. You watch their health drain and you really don't have to worry about it. I mean, sometimes if you don't have a fusion, but even then you just spam your fucking abilities. Because the game is just dick easy. Your energy in the first game was tied to orbs that you'd have to gather. Well, guess what? Those orbs are non-existent. It's just a health orb and a currency. Because guess what? Your energy refills pretty much your energy just pretty much refills instantly. It's just not even a challenge in that sense. It's just making the game dummy down or easier for no reason. I'm able to spam Penance's frickin' charged ability with reckless abandon, no repercussions, or just spam his ult and give it to everyone. There's no risk and reward. It's just spam this because you're gonna get your energy back anyway. Why not use it? I mean, there are like 2 to 3 bosses in this entire game that is just overloaded with them that are kind of a challenge, and that's like Nick Fury, Yellow Jacket, and I believe Titanium Man, which are the only challenging bosses in this entire game. But then again, overall in this entire game, the enemies are just an afterthought. Like in the first game, you had Clown and a Norseman. They were different models, they had different abilities, and they did different things, and they were in their specific areas. And here you have Gunman, No Gunman, Tiny Robot, Big Robot, Prisoner, Big Prisoner. And what do? Practically the same thing. Minus the gun guys have a projectile because they have a gun. No gun guys kind of just punch you. The tiny robots swarm you. The big robots kind of do like a couple of abilities and then they explode. You just got to get away from them. The prisoner is the same as the guy without a gun, and the big prisoner is pretty much the only unique one in this entire game. And that's all you see throughout the entirety of it. Even in the later half, it's just robots or nanite-controlled people. So, or nanite-controlled mercenaries, I think. If I remember, all I wrote down was those 6. And essentially, it's just in a blank in my mind because their enemies are all the same. You treat them all the same. You don't need to disarm one. Well, actually, you do. There's a shield guy. Now I remember. However, you disarm him and he becomes No Gun Guy. In the first game, you had combos like AAB, ABA, ABB, which I got wrong, which were stun, trip up, and knock up, which I probably still just got wrong, that were better to deal with certain enemies, or stun one, take care of another one, and then go back to him, or you needed to use those specific combos to disarm one or deal with one. In this game, they still exist. However, the energy just regains so fast that it's not needed. You can just spam your abilities and everything's an afterthought. I mean, granted, Iron Man's ability in the first game was essentially that because it reduced all the energy use to nothing. But just having the mechanic of constantly regaining your energy makes everything an afterthought because you can just spam your fucking abilities. I mean, hey, blocking's in the game and it does the same thing in the first one. You block all damage except for lasers this time around and a knockdown, but that's about it. Also, the fact that the characters flying and using, you know, like the web swing, if you're playing as a spider person or whatever, there's like teleport or something, is still slower than just dodge rolling. I mean, that was a problem in the first game too, but I mean, I just find it funny that dodge rolling is the most optimal way to move and escape and pretty much do everything. So that's just another thing in this game. But I could say more. My whole point is, when you compare this game to the first one, it is such a major regression in comparison. But as a game in and of itself, if the second game was the first game, and the first game was the sequel to the second game, I think it would have been a lot better as like just a progression of the systems from, you know, the second game to the first game. But it's not. This is a sequel to the first game, where you had a lot more story, a lot more content, a lot more things to mess around with than you do in this game, which is just a bare bones version of the prequel. This time I played with my friend, and shoutouts to him because last time I didn't, because I'm an ass. But we can't even do PvP in this game because the simulation discs are actually a simulation of training. And the one that I tried was just, you fuck up some boxes and hope that a robot pops out and you get some points. It's stuff like that. You can't even do like your character is Thor, your friend is playing as fucking the one dude, or your Invisible Woman, and your friend is an invincible piece of shit radioactive man. So there's less content in that regard for multiplayer, because multiplayer is just, hey, go do your own thing and play the story. One of the only positive things this time around, personally for me and my friend, was we liked the roster more. But I'm not saying that the roster in the first game is bad, because it really isn't. But we just like this one more. The graphics are better. Hey yo, editing me stepping in again. So there is one more thing I liked about this game, and that is the music. Whilst I was searching for music from the game to put in this video, it's not bad. It does kind of get samey at points near the end, but that is another thing I do like about this game, is its music is actually pretty good. But it also has like 5 of the same different songs for one zone at a time, and it's kind of weird. Anyway, I fucking don't know what else you want from me. That's pretty much the only positive things we had about this game, and I had about this game, so I got nothing else to say. Game as a sequel kind of sucks, but if it was a game alone, or the first game, it would have done a lot better than what it is. But all in all, as a sequel, it didn't expand upon itself. Yes, they added like a couple of things, like the fusion system, but then they took away ultimates with it. They added an RPG dialogue system of aggressive, defensive, neutral, but that didn't really do much, except you did enough aggressive to get boost on your character, you did enough neutral to get a boost on your character, enough defensive to get a boost on your character. But it had unique text for each hero, and some had special interactions, which I personally enjoyed. But as a sequel itself, there wasn't much that it expanded upon from the first game, and it just regressed from the first game. But if standing alone as a game, it isn't bad. I can't like stress that enough, because fuck, if you like the game, like the game. I don't care if you like it, I mean, at all, because as a game it's not bad. There's no like game breaking shit, there's no dumb bugs. I mean, granted, we encountered a couple of glitches, but they didn't ruin everything, so go ahead, have fun with it. I'm not gonna shit in your cereal. And at this point in time, I haven't touched the third game, because I know it existed, and it took them like, I want to say 12 years for it to come out, because this game came out in 2009, but I haven't touched that game, so I hope it's better or goes back to something that the first game did. I hope. Please. I think editing me might find out otherwise, because you might buy it, maybe, if my bank account isn't dry. So, yeah. Welcome to the outro of this shitty game. I could actually probably put this stool away because I'm not angry anymore, so here we go. Anyway, welcome back to the end of this fucking video. If you're done watching it and you don't care about personal stuff, you can click off I don't care, subscribe if you want, it's up to you. Now if you want personal stuff, here I go! Yeah, this game overall just kind of sucked, I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of boring. I really don't know what else to say, except I hope I get this done in less than a month. Again, as I said last time, because I'm dumb And I hope editing me, aka future me, aka fucking just edit, you bastard, me, and not be lazy. So, yeah, because I'm timing myself to put up this fucking green screen and lights and shit. That sucks, and now I only have 11 minutes to record this outro unless I want to do another session, because that sucks. Just thinking about this game just makes me want to play the first one, just because of how much better it was in comparison to this one. It's insane how much regression it could have. Whoa, I didn't know that could happen. I mean, it's not as bad as a sequel as this shit stain of a game called Shitstiny 2, but I don't know. I just hope the third one's better, at least better than the second game. Maybe as good as the first one, but at least better than the second game. That's all I can ask for. But overall, it wasn't entirely shit. I mean, it did not have fun. You can have fun with it. I had a little bit of fun with it, and it was just really short, but yeah. Thanks.